Where do you start to learn to become a great concept artist or illustrator or whatever you want to do? Where do you start? This is like a common condom. Oh my gosh. Already off to a great start on this video. It's a very common thing that people are always mesmerized by. They're unsure where to even begin, you know? And I've been reading a lot of the comments, and it's clear that a lot of you guys haven't taken my mentorship, which is obvious. There's millions and billions of people. But I for whatever reason, I always just thought a lot of my viewers are people who watch tutorials of mine or streams, a lot of them. But this makes sense because I teach a lot, and I actually do imagine that even in my future mentorships, and I'll find this out soon because I have an April one coming up and then I have a June one. But I'll find out real quick that this will probably still be true, which is that people, even if they've watched my content prior, I had one student who like even memed a lot of my content. I think they religiously watched a lot of my videos. If you're watching this now, what's up, dude? But it became very clear that even within my mentorship, I'll say what I'm saying now. People like months later will still be like, "Say what?" You know. I actually had a student ask me a question after we had like a week before, like almost a 2-hour discussion about these types of challenges, and then he asked me a question that was again in this vein. And I find that a lot of times in my mentorships, I spend more of it explaining the same concept over and over again, but just in millions of different ways until it's really understood and not lost on them, you know? But I think this is a very reasonable thing to kind of ask. It's a very reasonable thing to kind of be curious about, which is, where do I start? You know, you found out, hey, concept art is what you want to do. You love it, or illustration, or whatever field of art, right? Animation, 3D, whatever. Whoever is listening to this, you guys will have some inkling of where you want or what you want to do, right? And if you don't, I have a whole new video I'm going to put later, if it's not already, about this, about how to focus. But let's talk about this idea of where to start. And you've chosen all of these wonderful things. You have a great idea. You have a strategy of what it is that you think you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. Hooray, you've done it. But where do I start? And I'm going to pick a specific field. I'm going to pick the one that I know all too well, which is character design. Okay, you've chosen character design, but you have to learn anatomy. You have to learn costume design. You got to learn perspective. You got to learn shapes. You got to learn just design in general. You got to learn lighting. You got to learn what else is there? There's so many things. You got to learn forms. You got to learn orthographics. The tools, like, should you do this in 3D versus 2D? Should you do this with photo bashing techniques? Should I use this? Should I use that? The list may be essentially endless, right? It feels like it is a non-stop list of things, and you don't know where to begin. And this is the flaw. This is ultimately the flaw in this thinking. It's not that there are probably better ways for you to kind of pay attention to because of your level of skill. Like, you might have a lot of understanding of perspective, so maybe you shouldn't start there. Maybe you should start with 3D, or sorry, with maybe anatomy and gestures. Maybe you haven't done a lot of that. Maybe you have a lot of skill in anatomy and gestures, so maybe you should start over here or over there. You know, like, this is the problem. This is the heart of the problem. This is why I have a hard time giving anybody a straight answer, because of the ramifications that comes with that. So if I give you a straight answer, if I say, hey, you should study anatomy, and you go study anatomy, and a couple things could happen. One, it could be really easy. And you're like, huh, okay, this is great. Like, this is exactly where I needed to be. I feel it. I feel very motivated. And that, as you're doing that, eventually you start to like practice design, and you realize design is shitty, you know? And so then you try to approach the design, but then you start to realize, your anatomy isn't nearly as good because you can't really capture your anatomy within the design. And all of a sudden starts to fall apart really quickly. And then you start to try to practice, let's say, more advanced anatomy stuff to kind of make up the difference. And then it's not easy anymore. It feels very overwhelming. And you just start feeling lost because you felt like you were on the right track. But then as you try to diverge off of it, you feel like it's not anymore. And you lost again. And you might ask again, what do I study next? What should I practice next? Alternatively, let's say I say you should do anatomy. You start picking up an anatomy book. You start practicing anatomy, and it is unobtainable. You do not understand anything. You start to go into anatomy, and nothing makes sense to you. You feel wildly lost, and you'd start taking it personally. You start thinking, well, there must be something wrong with me because Anthony Jones said to start here. I'm starting here, and it doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel easy. I feel overwhelmed. So there must be something wrong with me. Not the great tutelage of Anthony Jones, right? No, of course that's not true, right? So in these circumstances, just to recap, one, you might feel great at first, but as time goes on, it will not fix the leaking faucet problem that I'm trying to fix in a minute. I'm going to give you some better advice. Or you recognize that it's a leaking faucet and you just feel overwhelmed and you just say, I'm not a plumber. I don't know how to fix this. So I guess it's not for me, And there might be some gradations in between, that will drive you one way or another. What I'm trying to outline here as the problem is when you expect, like the expectations from the answer of the question you just asked. Where do I start? There's a lot of things that are being implied here. Like if there is the best way to start and how you should feel about it. What I am not saying, just to be very clear, that there aren't more efficient and more effective ways to learn. What I'm not saying is that there might be a perfect place for you as an individual to quote unquote start. I'm just saying most educators, including myself, and including yourself as someone who knows who you are, like it's just going to be very hard to find that answer. And I'm saying to you, don't even think about answering that question then. It just seems too wild of a situation to put yourself in. So what should you do instead? Well, I think you should just ask a better question. You should ask better questions like, what am I not good at? Right? So if I want to be a character designer, and I start to paint my characters, what do I find myself struggling with? Well, I think design. Every time I try to make a cool design, I don't like my designs. This is like a common thing that people run into. And they'll say, hey, AJ, I don't like my designs. What should I do? Where should I start? Again, this goes back to this conundrum. It's like, well, if you think you're not good at designs, the answer is in the question, in the premise, in the challenge that you've given yourself. Then study designs. But well, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to look at. I agree. So just start looking anywhere. And I always talk about this like experience of becoming a great artist as if you're charting a map instead of finding a specific path, right? When you think of it like that, when you think of like not trying to find a very clear road to drive down, but rather you are charting the roads to even drive through, like you are the person who is charting the map on your artistic journey. That means you're the one that's charting the map. I can't chart for you, What I can do instead is you can, as you chart the map, as you start to find new roads that go down, as you begin to understand what what and where and how you can travel amongst this journey of yours, you start to describe that to me as, oh, I remember when I charted this for myself. And then I can start giving more explicit answers that are reflective and contextual to what you've just told me. A good example, let's go back to the character stuff. So I don't know how to design. I'm a bad designer. Like every time I design, I feel I don't like it. So you go and start to study. You start to look at some great artists. You start to trace their work to understand the kind of shapes that they're choosing. You start to replicate it without looking. You try to understand it. You start to write numbers and math to kind of quantify it in some meaningful way to you and to you alone. And you might come to me and be like, hey, let me show you my work from all of this stuff. And now I can see your kind of thesis through your artwork. I can see, oh, you tried to solve a lot of these design questions by, like, what's a common problem? Oh yeah, people will draw too many shapes. There was no cohesive vision. So then I'm like, oh yeah, I need to like kind of pick a shape and try to like, replicate it throughout the design. So that way it feels pretty interesting. And there's a pattern that people can attach to. And you might have not been able to see that, but I can see it now more clearly because you have like a thesis paper, like we're peers and I'm peer reviewing your work, But you've made a good attempt. You've really tried, You might be like, hey, I noticed that this artist tends to use these shapes a lot. Why do you think that is? And if it is a well thought through examination of that person's work, you might have a really good diagnosis of what you're seeing. I could be like, oh, that's probably because they're doing X, Y, and Z. And this is just a better way to learn. Is to just kind of constantly meet yourself where you're at. Stop trying to find people to chart your map for you, to tell you where you should begin. Just start charting it. And then as you get lost, like just show it to other people. Like, hey, look, I'm lost on my map. And that's your work. That's your portfolio. That's your illustrations. That's what you're doing, what you're putting out there. And the more you do this, the more you ask just better questions, in my opinion. I don't think that people should not or should be afraid of asking questions of any kind, including where do I start. But when you begin to ask less general questions, like where to start, and you begin to ask more specific questions to you and what you are running into, if you think I have a hard time with designs and you think that's a unique problem that you're running into, I'm telling you right now, that's pretty general. But if you're like, hey, I specifically noticed something about this artwork that I admire, and every time I replicate it, tends to be the case. What do you think they're doing? That seems more surgical. Like you're being way more clear with me on where you feel the problem is, right? Like you're like, hey, like I've noticed this artist does this. I'm trying to do it. This is kind of the result. I still feel like I'm off. Oh, your proportions. Seems like your proportions are off. Their proportions are on point. That means you need to go back to your anatomy stuff. Oh, okay, great. Then it's like the question's like not about where to start anymore, right? Like it's like you're literally helping yourself know where to go next, where to chart the map. If we were to take this analogy further, it'd be like you are like trying to get through these woods and there's a bunch of shrub and you're not sure how to cut through it. It's like, oh yeah, let me give you a machete. Like this is the best way to kind of cut through shrubs. But that's still your map to chart. But I'm giving you potential tools to help make it easier to chart it yourself. Versus like, what are woods? Like, what's the first woods I should explore? It's too general. You ask general questions, you're going to get general answers. And if somebody gives you a very specific answer to general questions, then the earlier critique of what I think us teachers may accidentally do is lead you down a path that is absolutely a path you should go down, but you might not be ready for it, or you might be too prepared for it. And on the off chance of it being perfect, like we found the perfect remedy for your specific case, it doesn't solve the problem that I'm trying to help you guys understand, that you should be charting your own map anyway. Like you shouldn't be constantly having other people tell you how to get good at your art. I think you should have people help you consolidate information that you've gathered I think you should have people help you understand that this is more of your journey. Like you should have people to kind of snap you out of it. I had a student, and they're probably listening to my YouTube video now. He's a good kid who like watches my stuff, talks to me all the time. Really, really cool. I'm excited for their journey. And they asked me something like this, or like, where do I start? Like, how do I begin doing this and this? And they're like wanting to do all of these things. And my critique of them is focus. And I'll do a whole video about focus later. But my critique of them was that they aren't focused, that they keep jumping around, that I think that they can just stay focused, they'll get better. And they're like, yeah. I'll do these like daily sketches and thumbnails that you're asking me to do. But like, how do you do this? How do you do that? How do you like just constantly asking permission how to learn? And I said, first, just do what I've been telling you to do, and we'll kind of walk through it later. Like you're already trying to evacuate to something else, proving the fact that you have a hard time staying pinned down. So they stayed pinned down. They started to practice how to draw like portraits, and I said, okay, cool. And they're like, okay, well, how do I get better at portraits? I feel like I don't know where to start. Again, just consistently trying to throw themselves under the bus as if they are entirely incapable of learning this on their own. And I said, well, what do you think I will tell you to do? And they're like, study how to draw portraits and faces. And I said, bingo. And I said, give me some things you do. And they started listing a bunch of stuff, like almost like tiptoeing it. Like they didn't want to sound dumb. And everything that they would say, I would say, yep, yes, yep. Because listen, you guys, a lot of the things that you think you should do to get better are almost certainly the things you should do to get better, right? Because getting better requires a lot of training, lots of training, and trying to kind of pigeonhole yourself, try to like stack the odds against you to like, well, I can't start unless it is incredibly well documented and very clear to me what I must do. Like once you start to fall into that category of thinking, then in my opinion, you've really kind of stun-locked yourself a bit. Like you need to snap yourself out of that so you can just start to work. I did like a video yesterday about motivation and what I typically do. And I said I don't really focus on motivation on a smaller scale. I focus on large scale motivations, but then rely on patience and resilience. And in that video, I even said, like, I didn't feel like I wanted to paint, but on principle, I'm just trying to do a video every day, like out of principle. That's my alarm to get done. You know what I mean? Like it is very, very clear to me that a lot of what I do in a day-to-day, the success that I achieve is just from basic consistency, And if I said to myself, oh, I don't know how to start a YouTube channel, or rather, let's be more clear, let's be more specific to my current challenge that I'm encountering, which is I don't even know, I don't even know where to begin to grow my YouTube channel. Let's say that's the current, like how to start for me in my journey, in my growth as a YouTuber. then I'll be sitting there twiddling my thumbs, trying a bunch of stuff. And then as soon as I attempt one of the things, there is absolutely a high chance that it wouldn't do crazy well, and then could potentially throw me off entirely. It might make me think that I'm doing something inherently wrong, but I know better. In fact, I've talked about this with like other YouTubers, like where I'll talk to people about like, you can start your own YouTube channel. And I have friends and I have students who have done that. And I said, just look at like how many videos they have posted over the many years. It is very rare to find somebody who may have just made a couple and they just blew up. That is very uncommon. And that's not the standard you want to look at anyway. But then when you look at like the breadth of our favorite YouTubers, they've made thousands of videos for years, you know? And I have no question that if I maintain this kind of authentic approach to how I'm making these videos, like I've been doing, respond to the community and kind of like answer questions pseudo indirect, you know, because again, this isn't like a proper course that I have. This isn't a tutorial that I'm making outright. This is trying to scratch a different type of itch. There's plenty of great tutorial like vibe content out there on YouTube for you guys to watch and enjoy and consume. I consume it as well. It's awesome. There's like this one YouTuber that I like a lot. Like he's like wears glasses. I don't know his name. I think the next time I see a video of his, but he's like really calm and really somber voice. I love the way he talks, and he's just like, yeah, you know, this is how I like to do color dodge, and then he's just like super slick with it, and it's like really, really well edited and very clear. I'm like, damn, dude, I love the way this guy is teaching, you know? But what I'm trying to get at is like, that guy exists. And I don't necessarily think there is no room for more content like that. Absolutely, there is more room for that type of content. I'm just saying I don't want to do that because I already have avenues that I do make that kind of content. And I also reserve a lot of that type of thing for just what I think is high value education, which is through mentorships, right? But this type of stuff, I do talk about in my mentorships a lot. And this type of stuff, I think, makes a lot of people's lives better. But at the end of the day, you know, not worrying about how to start and worrying about what type of content will do well and what kind of content is like gonna be the greatest as my starting point helped me to start making this stuff. I literally was like, I'm gonna make videos in memory of Rob, because I felt like Rob taught me a lot of things. And for those of you who aren't sure who the heck Rob is, it's one of my closest friends who just passed away tragically from cancer. And his death just reminded me the value of community, you know? And so that's why I'm trying to rebuild it. And that was the only motivation, to just get started. It wasn't about making any good content. It wasn't about making incredibly meaningful content. It was just about putting it out there. And I'm just going to start doing this. This is for you, Rob. I'm going to start changing lives as much as I can, like you did for me. And as a result, I started saying, oh, wait, I could probably do this. I could probably build a proper channel. I could probably take this at a higher elevation than I've ever had in the past. Why not? Let's go for it. Let's see what happens. And I'm just kind of like winging it still. I'm not like losing sleep over it. I'm not like looking at this as like there's like all these things I have to do. Somebody wrote like a really cool piece of feedback for me on like what else I could do to maybe give more attention. It's aligned with kind of where I'm already going. So I'm just going to go ahead and try it. It's going to be like in the title of this video. Let me know if the title was like, whoa, like I need to know what this is about. And if not, that's cool. Why not? Because to me, it's like that is probably the lowest hanging fruit of things I can absolutely adjust, you know? Another one that I'm already going to do, which I've been doing starting since yesterday, is just to make my actual paintings that are in the thumbnails way more appealing to look at. Because I was like just genuinely sketching. But this goes back to the principle of like, was I overthinking and like thinking about how my sketches should be, what, like where they should like begin? Like, no, I'm just kind of following what's happening. I'm navigating with the current, you know? And that's how I've gotten good at art in general. Like I just was like, oh, I like my designs suck. Okay. Studying designs. Oh, my lighting's not good. Oh, okay. Oh, I don't have a good understanding of color. Okay. You know, I just whatever I'm not good at, I just hyper focused on it for a while and then just moved on to the next thing I wasn't good at. And I just did that rinse and repeat for freaking almost 2 decades. I still do it to this day. I'm still like, oh shoot, I don't know how to do 3D sculpting. Like that was like the biggest thing that I'm getting really back into again. I love 3D sculpting. And I recognized that I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't doing anything that I liked in 3D, and I was like, oh, maybe I just need to get better at like loosening up a bit. And I think what I'm going to start to do in the next month or so, once I start to get a little bit more of my time back, and maybe I'll do some videos so you guys can watch it happen, is essentially do 3D sketches, like sculpt something small and simple, you know? And that will help a lot. I already know it will. But anyway, I think I'm going to call this a day. I think this is good for now. Was it, for those of you who are watching it to the end, was it better if he's facing to the left or to the right? I think I've been doing a lot of characters facing to the right lately, so let's push them to the left, whether it's better or not. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. You guys have been sending nothing but incredibly positive feedback. It's been really interesting and really inspiring. I actually was kind of floored because the last few videos, I don't know how else to say this. Like, no, they were great. Like the likes and dislike ratio was really in the super positives. And even one video that I thought was a little more controversial, did well. Like people were like, I like this. And one of the things that I think I'm really enjoying from kind of the feedback you guys have been giving me is that people like to just fucking listen to this. Like while they're drawing, while they're working out, while they're like hanging out, like doing some other chore or something like this. And I realized that I love that type of content myself, and that I should try to find ways that I can give my perspective on things that are agnostic to, let's say, like how to paint something or art specifically related, like me painting and or becoming an artist, but maybe about art stuff and art things and art topics, right? Like maybe I talked about this in the last video, like talking about shows and movies and video games and stuff like this, and just giving you my perspective from like a professional and a personal perspective. I'm curious if that would be something you guys would like to listen to as well, because that's the kind of content I actually like listening to. I like to hear people's comments on, you know, pop culture and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of like Corridor Crew whenever they're like watching like old VFX and talking about it, like from old movies. Like that's a really cool format. I love that. So I'm just curious, for those of you who are listening towards the end, here's your opportunity. In the comments, put like the word topic in big bold letters and something that you think you would love to hear me talk about that has nothing to do necessarily with like art, being an artist, getting art gigs and working as yourself as an artist, like anything else that you think you would like a professional artist to give their perspective on. And if for whatever reason you still can't think of something like that, you still just want me to talk about stuff, that's fair too. Go for it. But if not, yeah, you guys' comments and your guys' likes and support on watching my tutorials on my website and all that good stuff, like that's been crazy, seeing people go there and help support me there. So keep it up. I appreciate you guys, and then I'll keep it up as well. Thanks for watching this video with me today. I'll see you guys in the next video.